Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policy-making and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the Chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. The Chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at www.siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting www.siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City government.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is Tuesday, November 1st, and certainly pleased to have you here tonight. We'll start our meeting by introducing you to your City Council.
Council members Erickson.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Selberg.
Present.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Councilors, thank you very much. We have Jeannie Omlin here, and Jeannie is here to lead us in our invocation. She's with the prayer. She is a prayer partner for the Direct Line Prayer Center, which is right across the street from City Hall. And I want to thank you, Jeannie, for all you do for our city. And thanks for being here tonight. What I'd ask is if you wouldn't mind just stand for the invocation and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for this gathering, this coming together as a body, united for the good of this city and all of its citizens. I thank you that your presence, O Lord, is in this place and abides in our city and in each of us. I thank you for our mayor and each council member who carry the responsibility of the welfare and decision-making of our city. May your hand be upon them. Ephesians 4:1-3. I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long-suffering, bearing with one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. God, may your will be made known in the hearts and desires of each man and woman on this council to serve our great city, Sioux Falls, in spirit and in truth. I ask, Holy Spirit, that you guide each one with integrity, wisdom, sound judgment, and fairness in all matters set before them tonight. I declare a spirit of unity over this body, those gathered here tonight and those watching this broadcast. We desire, God, to be in your will in every matter regarding our city and all who dwell within. I ask your blessing and your favor, God, over the people of this community and in all situations concerning their well-being and the good of Sioux Falls. As our state motto so beautifully declares, under God, the people rule. We thank you, God, that under you we find that favor and blessing. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Glad to have such a great group here tonight. Is Stephen here, please? Stephen, welcome. Stephen, thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Please introduce yourself to the people of our town, please. And if there's other guests you want to bring up too, you certainly can, Stephen.
Okay. You guys want to come up? You're all right. Okay. Oh, my name? Okay, sure. No problem. Thank you, by the way. My name's Steve. I'm from the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. It's a nationwide group that we work to develop awareness of the disease, and we try to do advocacy work for the group. And November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month worldwide, and Mayor Uther is going to make it Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month for Sioux Falls, South Dakota for the month of November. And I'd like to first thank the City Council as well as the Mayor's Office and Mayor Uther for doing it for us, because they really don't have to. It's not an obligation, and I really appreciate it. I
don't even know how I can follow that, Stephen. That was really good. Thank you.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was we've worked very hard, and with the city, we're going to have a Purple Stride next June. So we'll have the whole city will be invited to walk, have their own team if they want, to develop awareness. So it should be, it's our first big splash into local advocacy, I think, and that should make a huge difference.
Stephen, are you from South Dakota?
No, I'm from New York. I've lived here 11 years.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is most of my work has been done in Washington. With John Thune, Mike Rounds, Christy Noem, I've been in their office at least 3 times each, mostly working with the government to get money for research, money to create awareness. So it's a pretty interesting job, non-paid. It's a volunteer job. But basically that's what we do. And
thanks for staying in South Dakota, Stephen. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Stephen, first of all, thanks for informing the people of Sioux Falls and South Dakota what it is that you're doing, and I look forward to this. The proclamation reads, whereas in 2016, an estimated 53,070 people are going to be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 41,780 are going to die from that disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, it is the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 7%. Whereas when the symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is in the late stage, and 73% of the pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 93% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 110 deaths are going to occur in South Dakota in 2016. Whereas the incidence and death rate for pancreatic cancer, they are increasing. And pancreatic cancer is anticipated to move from the 4th leading to the 2nd leading cause of cancer in the United States by 2020. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in Sioux Falls and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Sioux Falls are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness, and thank you again, Steve, for making us aware, about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in Sioux Falls support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer. And again, remember, there's 110 that are estimated that are going to pass away in 2016 alone, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim, as Stephen said, November 2016 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in Sioux Falls. Folks, Stephen is just one of the people doing this for free. He's just being a good steward. He's trying to make you educated about this deadly disease, and there's others here as well. Let's give Stephen a round of applause. Let's give all the folks that want to make this a big deal. Thank you. No, you're not getting away with that. Tell the folks.
Well, I will be a 10-year pancreatic cancer survivor on December 11th of this year.
Stephen said, pretty good. Pretty good. Are you kidding me, Stephen? That's great. I love it. And thanks for doing this tonight. You bet. Thank you all. Councilors, thank you for that opportunity. Appreciate it. Now our consent agenda, Council. Any motions, changes? Hey, Councilor Neisert.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull the retail liquor license renewal for TNT Entertainment Wiley's Tavern, 330 North Main Avenue, number 201 from Agenda Item 8, Exhibit B, and move it to the regular agenda after Item 21.
Councilor Neisert, thank you. Is there a second on that?
No, he doesn't need it.
Don't need that. That's right. Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate it. Councilor Urbanbach's ready to go tonight. I love it. Love it. So any other changes to the consent agenda, folks?
I would move approval on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Urbanbach's made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to amend item 1 by replacing facilities management, furnished cleaning services at HHW, environmental and Oakview libraries, D&D cleaning, $34,996 with facilities management, cleaning at HHW, environmental and Oakview libraries, Service Master, $33,212.
Second, Erickson.
Council Chair has made that motion to amend our agenda item 1, seconded by Councilor Erickson. If there's no discussion on that, let's vote on the amendment, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. We now have an amended motion. Let's vote on that, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing? Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Folks, let's now move on to our regular agenda. Any changes to that?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Box made a motion to approve our regular agenda tonight, seconded by Council Chair Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Very good. Folks, this is a great opportunity for you to engage the council. It's a public input portion of our meeting. Anybody who's willing to come forward, just come on forward. Just 2 requests. Number 1, just introduce yourself to the people of our town. And then number 2, if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, we would appreciate that. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm kind of nervous, but my daughter's not really up here. So she wanted to say a couple of words to the council, especially you, Mr. Mayor, before I get started here real quick. So introduce yourself.
Thank you.
And go ahead, hon.
Hi, my name is Brenly Major. I'm his daughter, as you can tell. I'm learning about government and mayor in my social studies classroom. and I'm really excited to be here, and I was wondering if you can come to my school and introduce yourself.
How do I not? Yes, in fact, if you could just leave your contact information, we'll make sure that we set that up, and I look forward to engaging you in the rest of your class. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Great job. Council, I know I wasn't supposed to allow clapping there. So that's an exception. We did an exception for you. I'm not going to do it for your dad, okay? So, yes, Jay.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I'm
Jay,
here.
Could you just introduce yourself to the people of the city?
Sure.
please?
Jay Major, CEO, paramedic, MedStar Paramedic Ambulance Service, Brandon, South Dakota. I'm going to give you just a quick update, a quick overrun of what I said a couple of weeks ago, and then I'm going to continue on with the rest of what I had to say when I ran out of time.
Yes, sir.
So first off, we talked about the mutual aid agreement that MedStar wouldn't sign with Paramedics Plus, and we talked about the reasons that we didn't sign it, and it wasn't for the fact that we didn't want to have mutual aid. It was the fact that we'd made over 20-some runs in this city, and out of those 20 runs, we made it to one call, and that one call we made it to, we actually saved a life. It was a cardiac arrest. That was the only call we made it out of 20. The other calls, we were used for nothing more than a time response delay system. What I mean by that is you call us from Brandon to come into this city when they have no vehicles available. We spend 20 minutes to get here. I put an ambulance on the street back in Brandon, which is my responsibility, and then we get called off because somebody came available at the hospital, which could have been 10, 15 minutes further than we were to the call, but we would have gotten called off all the same. As a businessman and as somebody who cares about what I do, we can't simply do that and make a living, or it's not the best thing for the patient care. And so I'm not going to go back and rehash all the things we talked about before. I want to move forward now. But that's the reason that we hadn't signed the agreement at that point. We all know that there is some issues with the system in Sioux Falls. We all know that. We can hide it, but we know there's issues with the system in Sioux Falls. We also know that there's issues with MedStar when it comes to REMSA. That's been that way for 30 years. I'm here to say it's time to put those aside, as we talked about earlier. And the last time I was here, I opened the door for REMSA to call me so we could discuss mutual aid agreement, that we could make something work that's best for the citizens of Sioux Falls, the best for the provider you presently have, and something that worked for MedStar. And I have not been approached. I didn't show up last week to your council meeting because I wanted to make sure that they had plenty of time to approach me and speak with them about a mutual aid agreement, which they have not done. The other thing is, this little, I don't know if it's a secret study that they're doing that none of us know about yet, but, the only oversight that they seem to have is me. REMSA doesn't really seem to be an oversight for the quality assurance that you have in this city with the present provider. And if I wasn't here, none of this would even be brought to light. And I'm not saying that because I'm patting myself on the back. I'm saying it because not everything is always exceptionally good. It can't be. And that's what your health director is trying to make people believe, is everything is always exceptionally good. And it simply isn't, and it can't be. But I'm willing to put my differences aside with those people that we haven't gotten along with so well and sit down at the table and do something that makes sense for all of us, because I'm not going anywhere. I got 8 trucks in Brandon, and you add that to the 9 or 10 trucks you have in Sioux Falls, that's a total of almost 20 vehicles that we could be utilized at one time, which 2 big accidents would take all those vehicles at one time. So, and yeah, you're looking at the clock, but you took some of my time, I saw you. That was a little joke, and I'm sorry. Didn't even get a smile out of you. So anyway, the point being, Mr. Mayor, I'm here to ask you, to ask REMSA to open their minds, knock on my door, and invite me in so we can talk about this mutual aid agreement, because they're the ones that ultimately have to sign it. And as we discussed before, it's not a volunteer group, no matter what anybody says, Mr. Mayor. You're in charge. Your health director is paid. Julie Charbonneau is paid, all by the health department. You're in charge. You can order them to talk to me. And I think that's the route we have to go right now, because they're obviously not going to do it themselves. There's too much pride involved. When it comes to health care, let's get rid of the pride and let's go with what's best for the people of Sioux Falls, which means a good, strong, quality agreement between both services and the city of Sioux Falls. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. And Jay, by the way, you had 44 seconds remaining.
Well, I'm going to use it then
We're doing it right in.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Thank you. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on any time? Welcome.
Hello? I'm waiting for the tech guy over here. All right. Greetings. My name is David Zokaitis, and I'm here to speak tonight about decorum and related issues. It's alive? Now, I happen to think that decorum is a good thing. It keeps the boat moving down the river without too many bumps. And as you know, we've got a nice formal meeting here, and I try to dress the part, and put on a tie and some nice clothes, and decorum. And try to look, respectful. And decorum really helps communication, helps people keep under control, that kind of stuff. And as part of our decorum, we should focus on issues and not make crazy, outlandish statements, and try to focus on one topic at a time so that we have time to think about it and process it. And it makes life a lot easier that way. With decorum, communication helps a little bit. They work together pretty nicely. But communication can be quite a struggle for a lot of people. It's not everybody's main skill. I mean, I work in IT, but that doesn't mean that my job has anything to do with communication, only just once in a while. Part of the challenge with communication is a lot of people don't really understand what makes their own gears go around. We don't really understand our hidden motives, and that can make life more difficult. I have discovered that protecting one's sense of self is extremely important. If you ever talk to somebody about their dogmas, expect fire and brimstone and pride and anger. And that can lead to uncomfortable truths that lie hidden for far too long. If you don't like to deal with tough issues, then little problems build and build and build, and then you get a great big disaster, a crisis. To address uncomfortable truths is really quite a trick. You've got to be patient, diplomatic, tactful, and persistent. Talk to somebody about this uncomfortable little problem, and they'll forget it, and they'll forget it again, and forget it again. Maybe 5 times later, oh, hey, maybe there's an issue going on there. I've seen that. And addressing uncomfortable problems requires advanced human understanding, and that's a problem for a lot of people. Now, the reason I bring all of these little pieces up is because they all came together during the last meeting. We had a speaker here, Tim Reason, I think that was his name. He was a little short on his communication skills, a little short on tact. I think he was a little long on honesty. And that can lead to issues if you're dealing with uncomfortable truths. The man related an event with perhaps too much honesty and not enough tact, and for that, out he went. I think maybe next time we could learn from this experience and hopefully come up with a different approach. And next time maybe we could correct them and say, hey, settle down and just try to keep going. But one thing that happened, Tim's issue last time was mistreatment by police. He said he was physically and verbally mistreated. But as the result of this perhaps excessive focus on decorum, his issue was lost. So I think we should work on that a little bit. And his complaint has been aired before. He talked about police running amok and not doing their job properly. And we've heard that before, and it looks like a pattern. All right, now, I don't know Tim, but if he's out there somewhere in Sioux Falls, I'd like him to come back and talk to me, and I'll help him make his presentation better so that we can discuss what his concern is. And if there's somebody else out there who wants help with the presentation, they can meet me here, and we'll set up a meeting, and I'll help them with their presentation, and then we'll get better public input, and hopefully won't have too many more conflicts. Sioux Falls, hey, it's a pretty place. And we should know that, and we should enjoy life a little bit and enjoy beauty. And here's my last slide, and there's even a cute little smiley face. And with that, I bid everybody a good evening. And it's a beautiful world. We should know that.
Thank you, David. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. I want to thank Council Member Greg for taking the time to pull Wiley's off the consent agenda, Pat Storr and Teresa on helping with this. This bar has become problematic. It's more disturbing because we're not finished, because I still have an argument with the police department on their law enforcement behavior off duty. They're responsible for that. So we're going to have some more discipline actions coming on these 3 police officers at Wiley's. Wiley's has been police call after police call, saturated police calls. It is against the law. It is a misdemeanor offense, state charge. You cannot sell to people that is intoxicated. You have 5 points when you serve alcohol, imperative. You watch for vision and their conduct. You don't keep overpouring alcohol, because then therefore you get fights and it gets out of control here. 7, 6, 5 police cars deep into one incident. These owners at Wiley's is paying, and I can understand that they're paying their own property taxes, but the police calls for service, the city citizens are paying more dollars for the unnecessary police calls out there when it could have been prevented in the first place. I asked council because I know what's about to transpire here. I'm not dumbfounded on this. I know the law like the back of my hand. We're not trying to take their license away from them. We want to put it on record that this is going on. The stuff needs to stop. The police needs to stop. It's a nuisance on the police, and it's a stress on the police department. I've talked to police officers that are scrounging on that ground with these people outside of Wiley's. And they said, you know what, they're not here because it's political, because they don't want to get in politicals, but they said, Sierra, it is stressful. Our job is stressful. It has to come to an end. So I am grateful to speak on behalf of those police officers that are scrounging around and fighting with these intoxicated people at Wiley's Sports Bar and Grill. I asked council to keep the license, come up with some kind of conclusions here by law that y'all can on them, and let's do like council did to the vault, and then wait another year for the license to come back, and if they improved or not improved, then you have the right not to renew the license. I think that would be very fair to do that. But we have some issues at Riley's, and I know some of you council members know about this, and I'm just going to end it before I talk too much, but this is a serious issue, and it affects the police, and it affects city tax dollars. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sierra. Did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
I'm Noel Schroeder, retired, live here in Sioux Falls. I came here to personally thank Greg and the council for taking action in our backyard, where we had a cement pile that was probably 15 feet high, full of trash and rats, and you people came to our rescue and cleaned that up so we can look at the golf course for the first time. I really appreciate that. I wanted to come and thank you personally for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Appreciate that. Did anybody else want to engage the council, folks? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll now move on to the item that was pulled by Councilor Neisert. And
Point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you want that before or after 21?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We're going to do 21 first, and then we'll do, okay, thank you, Councilor. No, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 21, please.
Item 21 is a conditional use permit appeal, 5631-2016, 235 North Prairie Avenue, Pettigrew subdivision lots 1, 3, and 4, lots 1 through lot 4, block 26, Bennett's second addition to City of Sioux Falls. The request for the conditional use permit was for an electronic message sign in a residential zoning district, denied at the October 5th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting with a vote of 0 yes, 7 no.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Diane Ducoyer with Planning Commission. Excuse me, with Planning. The conditional use permit for the electronic message sign is located within a residential district that the applicant is applying for. The applicant is Augustana Lutheran Church. The property is located at 235 North Prairie Avenue, which is just south of West 7th Avenue. The submitted sign plan indicates a two-sided electronic message sign. The height of it is 1 foot 9 inches and the width is 6 foot 10 inches, located on the east side of the property on North Prairie Avenue. This sign will replace the church's static sign that exists at approximately the same location. Excuse me. We have had numerous letters and emails, both at the time of the Planning Commission and then recently with the appeal coming up. And I have some of the summaries to that if you'd like to hear it. Otherwise, I can provide that information after the applicant attests to some of the.
Diane, why don't you do it now? It's a summary of probably both some pro and some con.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oppositions, we received approximately 6 letters regarding the sign. The concerns of the opposition was that that Prairie is too high a foot and vehicle traffic for the neighborhood where the electronic message sign would be located, and any moving message would be distractive to drivers as well as those that would enter the intersection at Prairie and 7th, so on Prairie as well as at the intersection. The church is also located in the Cathedral Historic District, which is mostly residential, and the electronic message sign is out of character with the neighborhood. Also, the church has indicated the EMC, Electronic Message Center, will mostly be static, but it can't be enforced once it's approved. So if they say they would accept a condition to just change that sign once a week, we have no way of enforcing it. So that is really in opposition to it. It would be a difficult thing to be able to enforce. In support of the electronic message sign, this is both by neighbors and church members. We received 6 letters that included about 32 signatures. It increases the visibility of work and service for the church in the community. It improves communication for the church of upcoming events. They're willing to add restrictions to the sign to be sensitive to the neighborhoods. A couple of the things that they offered, again, that it would be static, that they may change the message only once a week, but I think that's still open for discussion. And they wouldn't have any graphics or moving messages. It would strictly be limited to words. So that kind of summarizes both the opposition and support of the sign. I can answer any questions you might have.
Diane, before you do that, why don't I go to the public? Folks, if there's anybody here who wants to chat about this with the council before I turn it over to them, this is the right time to do it. If you wouldn't mind, just come forward, introduce yourself, both pro and con. We'd appreciate that. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Case. I am the council president at Augustana Lutheran Church, 235 North Prairie Avenue. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you the appeal of our decision from the Planning Commission last month. Thank you also to Diane at the Planning Department for helping us through this process. We decided to appeal the Planning Commission's decision because we felt we did a poor job showing the support for the sign. There were 2 individuals who spoke against the sign at the Planning Commission meeting, and they seemed to carry the day with regard to the fact that the sign didn't fit the neighborhood. Subsequently, we also heard a neighbor had opposed the sign because they thought the placement would be parallel to the road, similar to our existing sign today, when in fact it would be perpendicular to the street to minimize the effect of the homes across the street. So their objection was with incorrect information. Additionally, after the meeting, we learned that one of the planning commissioners thought that everyone in attendance that night was against the sign, when in fact it was only the 2 people who had spoken up that were opposed, and there were over a dozen other people in attendance that night that were in favor of the sign. They just didn't get up to say anything. But to that end, I would like to point out that there are all these people over here that are actually in favor of the sign. So I wanted to make sure that they were recognized as such. It is true that Augustana Lutheran is inside the Cathedral Historic District, barely. Prairie Avenue is the western border of that designated area. And that said, our neighborhood, as we consider it, is much larger. We consider our neighbors to be from Minnesota to West Avenues and from West 10th Street all the way to Russell. It's a much larger area than just the Cathedral Historic District, and it encompasses hundreds of additional homes. I think it's also important to remember that we as a congregation are a neighbor too. The congregation voted to approve this sign by a vote of 35-3 at one of our congregation meetings, and we have and always will strive to be a good neighbor. We took care to work with Pride Neon to design the sign with respect to the historic nature of our original building and keep that in mind. A couple of weeks ago, I stood here and showed you a couple of pictures, I think which have been scrolling anyway, or this one is the picture of our original sign. It's over 90 years old and really must be replaced. The metal frame has rusted through to the point that we're unable to really change anything about the sign. So if we zoom in to the next picture, as of next week, this sign is going to be completely out of date because the pastor of Pueblo de Dios is leaving to accept another call in Minnesota. Pueblo de Dios is a Hispanic congregation that Augustana Lutheran partners with. They utilize our building for worship services and many other events throughout the year, and their congregation does great work and ministry with the Hispanic population, not only of our immediate neighborhood, but also of Greater Sioux Falls. Our intent with this message board is simply to be able to more effectively and efficiently communicate with the neighborhood. So essentially that would include 4 distinct separate messages at any given time that would roll, or not, they wouldn't physically roll, they would change throughout the day. Those 4 messages would be an upcoming Augustana event, an upcoming Pueblo de Dios event, our worship schedule, and then we think some kind of neighborhood public service announcement would also be beneficial. According to the current sign code, we could install a non-message center sign, like the manual one. Similar to this, it could be as big as 50 square feet based on our lot and the residential neighborhood. However, if we tried to show all 4 of those messages that I mentioned at any given time, we would probably have to take up all 50 of those square feet in order to show those messages with any reasonability. The technology that the message center will allow us to communicate the other messages in a much safer, much more concise and neighborly way by utilizing only 28 square feet, like the last picture here. I guess you've seen this one already. And I think we can agree that with this sign only being 28 square feet instead of 50, the message center itself, as Diane mentioned, it adds up to less than 12 square feet. And I think we can agree that this message center looks better than the bright white bars of the previous manual sign. Additionally, it's my understanding that the folks at Pride Neon, or from the folks at Pride Neon, that our message center is the same size as that message center at the Midco Aquatic Center, which is in full view of the houses across the street from that and adjacent to the park. For me personally, the most frustrating aspect of this process has been there's a handful of people in the area that Diane had mentioned that have opposed our sign before the city, but they have not been in touch with me or the church. I discussed this sign at one of the neighborhood watch meetings, and we've hosted 2 additional neighborhood meetings looking for input and discussion about the sign. However, only one person expressing opposition attended any of those meetings, and there was no alternative messaging solution offered at the time. We've worked hard to design the sign to fit the building and have placed the sign perpendicular to the street in order to minimize its view from the neighbors across the way.
Kevin, before you continue, sir,
yeah.
Are you the only person speaking amongst your group here?
I don't think so. I think there were others that were planning to speak as well.
Okay. Well, normally the decorum, as David talked about, is 5 minutes or less, okay? You're at about 5:30 right now.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And
Talking
so
slowly.
What I'd ask is that try to wrap it up as best you can, or maybe have some other folks help support you in your thoughts.
No, okay. Very much easily, rather than having any negotiation, we've just gotten a no from them. They didn't want a message center. And I know it's impossible to please everyone all the time, but we feel that the message center is the best alternative than a manual message center. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And Kevin, my gut says there's going to be some questions as well, so don't leave us.
No problem.
Very good. Folks, did anybody else want to discuss this item with the council? You're more than welcome to do so. Come on, anybody, folks. Come on. Yeah, good job. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Steve Bartling. You'll have to bear with me. I had a seizure about 6 months ago, so sometimes I'm not talking as great as I should. Okay. But I've been going to this church. Well, my grandkids were there, and I was born there. I was baptized there. All my kids were baptized. I've been there 20-some years. 10 years ago, we decided to change a big ad in the back of the thing, and everybody here says that, you know, we worry about how tall it is and what's new and what's old. We changed this whole thing out of the church, and nobody said a word about that we couldn't do that. And now we can't put this up here. And they're telling us that we've got 6 people that are complaining about this, but there's only one person that lives on that lot. And that street is not that fast as some of the other streets that are out here. I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I'm upset, but I've been pretty fired about this because it seems like we weren't even allowed to really even talk, and all you guys did was just walk right over us last time we were here. And this time we want to be heard that, you know, we've done a lot for this thing. People that come to this place on a September when we have what? Yeah, we have the food. We paid food people. We do all kinds of stuff for people around the state over here. And it'd be nice to be able to put stuff up that, hey, on Thursday we're putting this, Tuesday night, on Friday we're doing this. And all we have to do is worry about why we aren't allowed to do what we're doing around here. This will be no different than what we had up here before. This church has been there for a long, long time. This thing has been here for a long time too. And all we were last time was just dumbed right out of it because no one else was willing to say. We didn't realize that it was that big of a problem for us to make a change up here. And that's all we've been seeing ever since we were here that day. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Steve, thank you. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Jim Standen, Sioux Falls, member of Augustana Lutheran. I just want to say right off the bat, and I hope my decorum is all right, but I heard someone tonight say, well, we could enter into a conditional use with the church. I think that was the exact comment, with the church. But then again, we don't know if we can trust them. I felt insulted. Can you imagine if the cathedral would have come before you for a conditional use approval and that statement was made? We are a small, little congregation. In fact, we are 2 congregations, one Spanish and one was founded by Swedes. But believe me, we'll keep our promises. If that is of any consideration of you, I know the people will keep our promises. I have to say, too, that we're totally confused about why we were rejected by the other board. It seems to be either it was safety, and that's ridiculous. How many accidents have there been in Sioux Falls clustered around electronic billboards? Did they bring any proof to you? I'm a debate coach. I mean, I was before I retired. They have to basically prove to you that an electronic billboard is a safety problem. And I don't think there was any evidence to prove that there is a safety issue. Secondly, historic nature of the neighborhood. I'm just going to piggyback. We built an addition about 12 years ago. 12 years ago. Huge addition. It didn't, I think it's beautiful, but it didn't conform to the original church. And there was no discussion that somehow or another this violated the historic nature of the neighborhood. And let's be honest, take a trip in that neighborhood and you'll see how historic it is. I mean, there is a house next door to our church that should be condemned. Take a trip there. It's terrible. All last winter, a basement window was out, never replaced. I can only imagine how discomforting that must have been to the people who live there, the renters who live there. And I can't imagine the varmints that must live in that basement. And so let's not talk about an historic neighborhood. Something like Tara is going to be compromised if we put up this sign. And lastly, it seems to me too that they had the mistaken impression that most of the people at the zoning committee meeting were opposed to it, so I guess we're opposed to it too. Now, if I'm mistaken, I'd be more than happy to hear the arguments, but I haven't heard any arguments. It's either safety, historic, or everyone there was opposed to it. It wasn't the case.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Greetings. As you know, I'm David Zokaitis, and from what I can gather, the plan is to replace a grody old sign with a nifty new sign. Well, so far so good. And that sounds like a really good idea. And I think there's some concern over how often the sign gets changed. If that's all written down, I don't see how there could possibly be enforcement problems. If you've got a deal and it's in paper and the deal gets screwed up, well, you have recourse to say, down goes the sign. But I'm a little bit confused as to how often the sign is supposed to change. I've heard that once a week is it, and then I also heard a little bit about they've got 3 lines of text that they need to put 4 things on. So it sounds like, well, yeah, once a week, but once an hour. So they need to clear that confusion up. But, you know, I like the idea of replacing grody old signs with nifty new signs that look pretty nice.
Thank you, David. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Frank Elvine. Live at 6311 South Calico Place in Sioux Falls. That house that Jim was talking about was my house. I grew up in that house, right next door to Augustana Lutheran Church. I lived there from 2nd grade through high school. And when my parents joined that church in 1944, our present sign that's up here was already 20 years old. So our sign has not been functional for many years. And as Steve has mentioned, nowadays seems like the goal of the church is to address community needs with free Thanksgiving dinners, bazaar sales, block parties. There was a time when we wanted to move the congregation to a park. We put a note in the bulletin, and they would go to the park for a picnic. They'd go to the farm for hunting. They'd go to the Nordic Hall for lutefisk and Swedish meatballs. Those days are gone. The dynamics have changed dramatically, and now the whole goal is to serve the community. And with that in mind, the idea was to try and get a new sign. Going to the sign people, they say they don't make signs with light bulbs and fluorescents anymore. It's all LED lights because of the efficiency, long-lasting, digital control, what have you, computer control. In any event, the sign that we're requesting would look exactly like the sign that we're allowed. We're allowed a 50 square foot sign. We're asking for a 26 square foot sign. And it'll look the same as black and white. The only advantage is you don't have to wait out in the snow and clip in the letters, try and find a 9 or a 6 or an I or an L, and try and make sense of the message. But we request to have the sign so we can serve the community better. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Welcome.
Good evening, Council. My name is Angela Bailey, and I'm a representative of the electronic sign manufacturer Daktronics. So I just wanted to address some of the safety concerns that some of the emails and people here have mentioned. So numerous safety studies have been completed regarding electronic signs, and that's why they're allowed, is that these studies have shown that they're not hazardous. And actually, I wanted to put this on the projector just to show you guys all of the safety studies that have been completed, and so you can see this. But basically, because of all these safety studies that have been completed, you'll see signs all around Sioux Falls along busy streets, intersections. Matter of fact, the state DOT and numerous other DOTs in the country, they even utilize the electronic signs to communicate messages to the traveling public. So I just wanted to point out that if safety was a concern, these signs wouldn't be allowed anywhere, whether it's in a residential area or along a busy street or intersection. That there's been a lot of research as identified up there, and that's why I really don't think safety should be an issue with this particular sign, just given what is around Sioux Falls and around the state and around the country. So if you have any questions about safety or anything about the sign capabilities, feel free to ask me, so I'm available.
Angela, thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Linda Sandin. I'm a member of Augustana Lutheran Church. The church sits in a residential area of Sioux Falls that was once a very vibrant, growing neighborhood, but over the years, things have changed a lot in that part of the city. But one thing has stayed constant, and that is the church that sits at 7th and Prairie and all the wonderful outreach that it does in the community. We have a monthly food giveaway program that is hosted at Augustana Lutheran. We have a growing youth program. I think these things are vital to the stability of what seems to be kind of a lower economic neighborhood that surrounds the church now. So by allowing an electronic message board in front of the church on Prairie Avenue, we feel it will enhance the communication with the neighborhood. The old sign is broken, can't be fixed. It needs to be replaced with something. So please help us forge ahead in the 21st century with a tool that will help Augustana continue to do God's work in the north end of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Linda, thank you. Folks, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Dixie Heeb. I think I laid out my reasons for not wanting the sign, and I think I'm carrying the flag of the neighborhood this evening. I live directly north of Augustana Lutheran. You can see my front porch, I think, on that sign. I know Kevin, because he used to live near me. I went to the informational meeting. I was torn. I love Augustana Lutheran. I like the work they do. I don't mind that there's cars parked up and down our street. I don't mind street closings for picnics. I don't mind any of that. I hate the thought of an electronic sign in a purely residential neighborhood. There's just no way any of you would want this sign across the street from you. The Aquatic Center is not a good comparison. It's next to the Western Mall. Park Ridge Mall. There's just no good reason that this has to be an electronic sign. It seems like the church has hung their hat on that. And frankly, I personally disagree with planning on whether or not a sign that's a contributing building to a designated historic district. There's standards for signs, there's standards for additions, there's standards for preservation. I think those all have to be jumped through. And I think the first mandate would be to try and repair that sign. And I understand it may not be repairable. I'm not saying it can, but I think that would be the first thing. I don't think an electronic sign is in any way consistent. I think safety was a minor concern, and I think I'm the one that raised that first, because the corner of 7th and Prairie is kind of ugly in terms of how people zoom through there and things that distract them. But that really truly is a minor concern to me. I think the major concern is just the inconsistency of an electronic sign in a purely residential neighborhood, no signs anywhere, and then in a historic district on top of that. And I think there's been some very hostile reactions to people that have come and voiced their concerns. And I think that's the reason I'm the only one from the neighborhood here tonight. And I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I don't think any of the members that have spoken in favor of this live by this church any longer. So for the reasons I put in my letter, I really do believe that this should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Dixie. Appreciate that. Welcome, sir.
Jordan Bra. I'm a member of Augustana Lutheran and a resident of Sioux Falls, and I full disclosure, I'm not a resident of the neighborhood. But I do have maybe a better comparison for a sign that I thought of this weekend, and Harrisburg Explorer Elementary is in a residential neighborhood, and there is a sign with animation that is actually larger than the one we're proposing, and there are roughly 500 to 600 children that are bused, walk, ride their bikes to school. There's also a park there. And perhaps that's a better safety comparison, and as far as I know, there haven't been any incidents where anyone has been hit or injured. That was the best example that I guess I could think of that isn't arterial, and I just wanted to speak in favor of the sign, and thank you for the opportunity.
Jordan, thank you. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Dan Daly, Sioux Falls. The judicial ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls does not allow for appeals into court. You can't stop these people. You can fine them as long as they don't pay the fine. There's no guilt. You can't take them to court. They can't take you to court. This body has no purpose without changing that judicial ordinance. You'll send out a big goon code enforcer. He will threaten them. It happened to me. It's happened to others. They'll issue a couple citations. Ask for 2. It's double jeopardy. The whole point is mute after the second citation. I don't know why these people are even here. Build it. Build it. It's happening with other digital signs across the city. Unless you change your judicial ordinance, we want our constitutional liberty back. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I'd have to agree with Jim back here to say that a church wasn't going to, the church says they were going to make the sign static. I think I would believe them. A Christian church that follows the teachings of Jesus Christ, I don't know why they would go back on their promise. Anyway, I also found it, I wanted to clarify something with some of the church members. The council isn't the one that denied this. The planning department is the one that denied this. The council is hearing this for the first time, and they're going to either deny it or approve it. So I don't want people in the audience to be confused that they've denied this. The council has lately had to fix the things the planning department and the planning commission have done because of whatever reasons they've done it. The council is here to fix those things. Just want to clarify that. But I found it a little ironic. Tomorrow night there's a planning commission meeting, and on the agenda is a sign, an electronic sign, much larger than this one, and not historical, just a big electronic sign that's going to go in a residential neighborhood on 26th Street for, I think, Good News Church. I don't know if I got the name of the church right, which I think is fine, and I think it should be approved. And the planning commission, or the planning department, told the planning commission to approve this. They recommend approval. So I'm really confused why an electronic sign that's much larger than this on a very busy 4-lane road adjacent to a residential neighborhood is just good and dandy and okay with the planning department, but a tiny 28 square foot, which isn't really big, people. I want you to know that. I work in sign business. It's not very big at all.
that is static and that will shut off at night is not hurting the historical nature of this neighborhood in any way, shape, or form. That is a ridiculous argument, and I'm all for keeping historical neighborhoods, but I see nothing with this sign that destroys that neighborhood in any way. So I hope you approve it.
Thanks, Scott. Folks, okay, sir, welcome.
Fred Moffett, Sioux Falls. I live at 205 North Colville. I walk by this church just about every evening right after supper. And I very seldom run into anybody on the street or the sidewalk. There's a few people maybe sitting on their front porches or in their yards, but nobody's ever, I don't see hardly any cars come along there. I go to a men's group meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning on every Wednesday, and we're the only ones in the whole neighborhood that are up that time of day. I don't see where the safety issue for cars and kids is a problem. In defense of our old sign, I have changed the letters in the old sign. This is a rhetorical question. When does not the wind blow in South Dakota? Well, they're little tiny letters. They're made of aluminum. And when you open the door and the wind blows, they're at Dixie's house or they're down at the other corner of 8th and Prairie. I mean, it's impossible to change that sign any time of the day or night, usually. So I'm all in favor of this sign. The color of the brick is not going to be white. That might be a deterrent. When you look at it, it's just pretty bright, but it's not. It'll be red brick, just like the church foundation. So that'll really subdue the actual aesthetics of the sign. So I just wanted to say it's just hard to change the old one. I'd like to see a new one because you can just type it in and push a button and you have it. Thank you.
You're welcome, Fred. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Sally Tapkin, and I just want to say very good arguments from everyone tonight, and I certainly appreciate what the church is arguing and debating tonight. This is not a personal agenda, not an attack by any means, but just kind of my own personal thoughts. I just want to add my voice to the neighbors in that neighborhood. I have lived in that neighborhood for 48 years, give or take a couple years, being somewhere else. I've purchased a home not far from there, and I love the neighborhood and the historic value that it all holds. Just very briefly, the place for bright lights and digital signs is not in a residential neighborhood, period. Residential neighborhoods are supposed to be places of rest and relaxation. Our homes are a haven after a long day, but there is nothing relaxing about a bright, lit-up sign blaring its lights and messages into your home at all hours. Where are the rights of these neighbors? Where are the rights of residential neighborhoods? The essential question is, I feel, would any of you want this sign across from your home? If your answer is no, as I feel it should be, then the only way you can vote is in favor of the neighbors and in favor of the neighborhood. I'm quoting, I believe you, Mr. Mayor, on several occasions that we want a city of good neighbors. Augustana Lutheran Church should start by being one. On a more personal note, I've attended many meetings and activities at that church through years, have loved it, have loved the congregation, have been to a couple services, and have thought recently, before any of this came to light, I like this church. I think it's interesting, and I'm certainly of no particular faith, but I found it comfortable. But after all that's kind of happened lately, I'm really questioning, do I want to be a part of something that's being made so large about something so small? I know it's not small to you, but I just think we start setting a precedence if we start allowing, even if this small thing is in residential neighborhoods and historic neighborhoods. Just some thoughts, just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Folks, very good. I appreciate the dialogue. I know the council does too, and also appreciate the diversity of the conversation. So very, very good. I'm now going to turn it over to the council. Councilors, questions, comments? Councilor Neitzer.
Mayor, I do have some questions, but I do need to make a disclosure. On October 6th, I did get a call from Kevin Case, the president of the church council, I believe. This was the day after the conditional use permit was denied, and he called me because the church is in my district by a block, but it's in the district. His main question was whether I thought it was worth appealing the conditional use permit. And what I told him was, speaking as a citizen who's watched this for many years, not as the counselor, I will just tell you, you have two options. You can either do nothing and wait 6 months and try again, or you can take a run at it and you can appeal. I have no idea how it would go. And I also told him that this would be quasi-judicial. I will disclose this even though you haven't even appealed yet, just out of an abundance of caution. And that he should talk to Diane in planning to find out what the procedure would be, and that what he's going to find out is that there's things as far as how they should communicate with us, and they should generally not communicate with us. And I told him I hadn't even watched the meeting and I didn't have an opinion of it. The only thing he shared with me was generally at the meeting essentially what he had shared, which was that there is concerns about maybe the historic neighborhood, and then you know, just the fact that it's a digital sign, and that. So I just wanted to make that disclosure to get that on the record because it's quasi-judicial. If I could just ask a few questions for Mr. Case first, if that'd be okay.
Yep.
Hours of operation, would you have a problem with, I think I heard this maybe at the Planning Commission meeting, would you have a problem with hours of operation, for example, turning it off between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.?
We would not have a problem with that, and I think that I had that in one of my written letters, I think, that I enclosed with the agenda, that was one of the things that I think would be important for the neighborhood and to be a good neighbor and to continue being a good neighbor, to make sure that it does go dark after 10 p.m. I think that's important, whether it's 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Yeah, we would be in favor of doing something like that.
Okay, and something else I had thought about was the dimming, but as you may know, that's in code already.
Right, I think
that
that's
has to happen as
right.
part of code, so that
Yep,
has to happen.
So it would get dimmer as the sun goes down, so it wouldn't be
yes, the
as
intensity
bright
changes.
as it would be during the daytime. It would.
What about, how about a restriction that the message center shall change its message in intervals no less than 60 seconds? So the message couldn't change more than once every 60 seconds. Do you have a time that you would
I guess I hadn't thought specifically or too specifically about times. I believe in talking with the Daktronics and the Pride Neon folks. I think it's state law is every 6 seconds that like a static billboard would change every 6 seconds. So we talked about 10 or 15 seconds. 50. Just thinking that if you're driving or if you're standing there, 15 or even 30 seconds is an eternity to look at even if we had 3 lines of text, which I don't know how frequently it would be 3 lines, but it would be an eternity to see that sign and to not be distracting. And then I think the code also has things about how it would flip. It wouldn't rotate or scroll or things like that that are written in the code as well.
Yes, no animation. You'd have no problem with no animation.
Right, yeah.
May I ask a question of the Daktronics representative?
Folks, anybody here from Daktronics? Welcome. Angela?
Hi, Angela here.
Angela, thank you.
Yep.
I had it in my notes and I couldn't find it. So technically, are you helping or working on this sign, or do you have anything to do with this particular sign?
This particular one, I've been assisting the customer here.
Okay. So technically, can it be set on a timer?
Yep. So basically with our software, you can schedule content. That's how it works. You schedule content. So what you do is say from 10 to 6 a.m. or 10 to 7, you'd have no content. And so then it would just appear black. It'd appear like it's off. So it's a very easy thing to do in the software.
Okay, and then as far as tweaking the intervals that the message changes, is that easy to
Yep,
do?
that's all in the software. You can, the end user can easily set that. It can, I think it can adjust to quite a few different intervals in seconds. So you could set it to whatever you wanted to set it at, whatever the permit required.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Erickson.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to disclose, since it's quasi-judicial, that I did speak to Mr. Frank Alvine today, and just general pitch of the same letters that you've been seeing and the reasons to vote for it. But again, since it's quasi-judicial, needed to disclose. Thank you.
Councilor, appreciate it. Council Vice Chair Kiley.
Thank you. I'm not sure that I have anything I need to disclose other than I drive by this on a pretty regular basis on my way to work each day. And I would also point out that Prairie Avenue, while it's being classified here tonight as a residential area, Prairie Avenue is the only through street that I'm aware of between Minnesota Avenue and West Avenue. So it is fairly heavily traveled. So I don't know if I would necessarily classify it as a residential street, but maybe more as a collector street. It's true that the church is in a historic district, but the sign, since it is not attached to the building, it's not regulated by governed by the same regulations of historic buildings. So I think we're kind of comparing apples to oranges in that regard a little bit. The safety problem was addressed, and I think Jim did an excellent job of addressing that. I mean, where is the proof? And I'm in traffic safety, so we deal with these issues quite frequently, but I do not have the documented evidence that illustrates that signs that are electronic versus static signs are any more of a problem in terms of traffic accidents. It's interesting, a manual sign could be up to 50 square feet, where we're looking at just under 12 square feet, and with the proposed electronic sign. And what's related to that and interesting is on the existing old sign, there's a huge spotlight. And I would like to know, is that functional? Is that used?
I don't.
Thanks, Kevin.
No, I don't think that sign, no, that light is not currently functional. But it would otherwise be bright, lighting up the side of the building where those three crosses
Nothing
are.
prohibiting that light from being used if it were functional
No, I think
and shining on the front of the building.
Right, yeah, it's more of an electrical maintenance issue on our part.
Thank you. So, and I question the amount of light emitted or the lumens of a manual sign up to 50 square feet versus one that's an electronic sign that's 12 square feet or smaller, whether the amount of light emitted would be any greater on the part of the electronic sign. And in terms of, this is a conditional use. So we can, as Councilor Neitzer has suggested, we can place additional conditions on this. And it would be enforced the same way other ordinances are enforced throughout the city. So, I think that if there were concerns, that it would be simple, that the neighbors or the individuals with the concerns can contact the city, as is generally the case, and express their concern, and then the city would deal with it as is appropriate. The 60 seconds, I know that's been thrown out, versus the 6 or 8 seconds. I was thinking with billboards it was 8 seconds, but we're pretty close with the 6 or 8 seconds either way. 60 seconds is quite a long period of time. I don't walk very quickly, and I could probably walk past it before the sign would ever change. But regardless, I think that could be worked out yet here this evening. But this has been kind of a head scratcher for me, and I cannot think of a reason why I would oppose this particular electronic sign. I'll leave it up to the rest of my colleagues at this point. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Staley.
I was just going to disclose that this morning Diane and I had a conversation about Dixie's letter that we got, email that we got last night, and I was just going to, and you, Councilor Kiley just touched on this, but I was going to ask Diane if she would just reiterate for the listening audience here why the Board of Preservation would not enter into this signage situation.
I reviewed that question with our historic preservation specialist in Pierre, Liz Almley, and questioned whether or not, prior to it even coming to Planning Commission, if the Board of Preservation had to review it, since the church is within the Cathedral Historic District. She said because it's not on the building and it's not obstructing the building as a freestanding sign, the board did not have to review it. So it was her opinion that we did not need to, so we didn't proceed with action on it at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Starr.
Great. Diane, one more question. Maybe a brief statement first, but I always take the work of the Planning Commission and staff very much to heart. I appreciate the work they do, and it's always very difficult to go past what, to disagree with staff and to disagree with the Planning Commission. So more the, how seriously I take this, but after listening to Councilor Kiley, are we missing something on top of that, you know, with those concerns addressed, that to move forward or to overrule what the Planning Commission did?
Staff did not have a recommendation at the time of the report. It was left up to the Planning Commission and the neighbors and those in attendance to make that decision based on the information that was provided at the meeting. It was denied 7-0, I'm sorry, from the Planning Commission, and that was mostly, I think, based on the input that they received for those that opposed the sign in the neighborhood. There were some safety concerns, whether they were perceived or real, and I think also the aesthetics of it within a historic neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would anybody want to make a motion? Councilor Erickson?
There's been great discussion, and for the interest of moving it along, I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor.
Second.
Thank you, Council Vice Chair. There's been a motion to approve and has been seconded. Any discussion? Council Chair Rolfing.
Diane, was mentioned here today by one of the people who spoke about our ordinance, our current ordinance. Can you cite that a bit about when and why and why not a sign like this could or could not be approved? There's been some specifics there.
The church is located within a residential district, so anytime there's a proposal for an electronic message center within a residential district, it does have to be reviewed by Planning Commission.
It just has to be reviewed. It doesn't say that it's not supposed to be there. It just says it has to be reviewed.
It just says it has to be reviewed for a conditional use permit because it's in a residential. We have a lot of churches that are coming forward, even one tomorrow night that was mentioned earlier with Good News Church. A lot of times they are located on arterials. Prairie is a collector street. It's a little bit different than some of the other locations where we have churches with signs similar to this one.
Okay. Thank you. That answers that question.
Very good. Councilor Erickson.
Do a point of order to our attorney, please. There was a possible conditions that we just saw this evening. My question to you is, if this is made a motion and indeed passes, do we need to send that back to Planning Commission because it's significant changes to that particular item like we've done in the past?
No, Counselor. Under Section 160.616, the City Council can require additional conditions at their discretion, and you do that at this public hearing. So
we don't have to send it back?
You do
we've
not.
Done that
No,
before.
you are specifically empowered by your own ordinance that you can add whatever conditions at your discretion that you believe are appropriate at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Neisert.
Question for you, Diane. If this was just passed with no amendments, what part of this is locked in? Is it just can any part of the sign change as long as they stay within a certain square footage? I mean,
As long as they stay within the square footage as proposed, and if it's approved by you, it can be located in a residential district. Any other conditions are difficult to enforce. We don't have staff to go out and look at these for every property where we might have conditions placed on it that are unique.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make a motion to amend and see how it goes. I'm going to make a motion to amend by adding the following conditions. Number 1, the sign shall be a monument-style sign. Number 2, the electronic message center shall be turned off between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. 7 days per week. Number 3, the electronic message center shall not be more than 12 square feet per side of the sign face. Number 4, the electronic message center shall be directed perpendicular to Prairie Avenue. Number 5, the electronic message center shall not make use of animation. Number 6, the electronic message center shall change its message in intervals no less than 10 seconds. And number 7, the sign shall be located on the east side of the church abutting North Prairie Avenue.
Second, Erpenbach.
It's been a motion made by Councilor Neisert, and it was seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any discussion, Councilor Neisert?
I just want to try to lock in essentially what we see here, make sure that things don't change. I think 10 seconds is an eternity that makes it more or less, quote unquote, static. As you're driving by, you're probably only going to see one message. The sensitivity to the neighborhood as far as turning it off at night and not having, lights coming in people's window facing it so it's perpendicular to the road, so the light is not directed towards anybody's house. And I think that's just a good way to let them have what they'd like to have, but be sensitive to the neighborhood.
Good job. Thank you. Councilor Erpenbach, any comments? Very good. Councilor Vice Chair Kiley.
Just a follow-up on the 10 seconds, and I can appreciate that change. But my question is, and Diane, can you clarify with our existing electronic billboards, is it 8 seconds?
I believe they are 6 seconds.
They are
I'm
6
not
seconds.
100%, but I do believe it's 6 seconds.
I'm almost wondering if we shouldn't just keep it uniform, billboards versus electronic signs, 6 seconds. So I would just make a proposal that we would amend the amendment.
If somebody tells me procedurally how to do it, I'm happy to make that tweak.
David, can Councilor Neisert just make a friendly amendment and have Councilor Erpenbach do the second? Councilor Neisert, would you be willing to make a friendly amendment to change the 10 seconds to no less than 6 seconds?
I would.
Councilor Erpenbach, would you be willing to second that?
I would not.
You would not.
Second, Erickson.
Is that okay? Thank you. I'm learning too, Councilor Erickson. Thank you. Good job. There has been a friendly amendment made by Councilor Neisert, seconded by Councilor Erickson. And really the only change was, instead of it being no less than 10 seconds, it's no less now than 6 seconds. So there has been an amendment made and a motion to amend the motion that's been already made. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please, on the amendment. And basically what those are conditions that have been placed on the main motion. Okay? Roll call vote, please.
So we're voting on all these amendments, including the 6 seconds, or we're just voting on the 6 seconds?
No, you're voting on all of them.
Okay. Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Dennis Bass, 8-0. We now have an amended main motion. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Dennis Bass, 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 22. Now we're going to move on to an item that was brought up by Councilor Neisert as part of the consent agenda. He wanted to move to this location, and it is the following. It involves TNT Entertainment, Wiley's Tavern Retail Liquor License Renewal for 2017 to be operated at 330 North Main Avenue, number 201 in the City of Sioux Falls. Councilor Neisert.
I pulled this item because this is the one opportunity we have each year to discuss concerns we have with any licensed alcohol establishment. And there's just a few questions and concerns I have with the police call volume primarily. Could I talk to a representative of Wiley's?
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Drew Duncan, and I'm here representing TNT Entertainment tonight.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Mr. Duncan, and I see the owners are here as well.
Yeah, I'm here with, if you'd like me to.
Please.
Todd Van Sickler, who's one of the 3 owners of the establishment. He's here with me. I also have here with me the manager, Craig Dewan, who's been in the business for about 20 years, and our head of security, Dustin Jorgensen, is also here. He's been head of security for about 3 years.
Okay, great. So I think really the main question I have is, when we look at the police call volume, and it's so disparate from other establishments, similar situated establishments, 4 to 5 times, what the next closest one is. I'd like to get your thoughts as to what the drivers are for that, and if there are things that you think could be improved to improve those numbers, or if there's good reasons for it.
Yeah, sure. As the council understands, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as the council understands, the standard used for a renewal or granting of a liquor license, suitable person, suitable location. So when I was thinking about this question specifically, and one that I'm sure is going to follow with regards to you know, some of the marketing strategies of a business like this, I thought of you know, just the easy ones that you would rattle off. With regard to call volume specifically, I would tell you some of those calls come from things like food trucks being outside, loitering people that we have outside of the business that are there all hours of the day and night. We have zero tolerance for any illegal activities that are happening within the establishment. So if there's any illegal activity at all or disorderly behavior, we ask patrons to leave. Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights, we have 2 off-duty police officers on from about somewhere between 8 and 10 to 2 o'clock in the morning. They often drive some of those calls. We off and on, we always call law enforcement, we call law enforcement, contact law enforcement for minors. You can see in the report that you have, we have no violations with regards to that. Our head of security has a stack, which he would have liked me to brought up as a prop, but I'll save you that, of around 100, I didn't count them, around 100 fake IDs that we confiscated in 1 month alone. So that drives some of the calls. Proper training of our people drives some of the calls. We've been told by our insurer a few years back, after a workplace injury with regards to a disorderly conduct or disorderly patron, that we shouldn't try and handle these ourselves. So one of the things that we do is, and we've trained our security and our off-duty officers to do, is if we have a disorderly patron that we can't get out of the establishment, we have that person watched in the establishment until law enforcement can arrive. So the other thing that I would say, and I almost hesitate to say it, Mr. Councilman, but I would suggest to you that until very recently, we were probably the largest grossing establishment downtown, and probably anything in that dynamic from 21 to 30, and at that time frame of 10 to 2. We probably have 5 times the volumes of calls because we were probably doing 5 times the number of business. And I think if you look at the last 60 days, you'll probably see that those calls probably even out with some of our competition downtown.
Okay.
I know that was wide-ranging, but...
Okay, thank you for the perspective. I think others may have a few questions as well, so I'm going to defer.
Councilor, thank you. Councilor Staley.
Now, my understanding is we're supposed to do a disclosure, first of all, of what we saw.
Yeah, I thank you. If I could, I should make, I do, this is quasi-judicial as well, so I guess I do need to make a disclosure. So I did go to Wiley's on Friday night from 9 p.m. to about 2:30. I did observe a number of things. Many of it were, I would say, good things. Security was very on top of things. I think I see one of the security guys here. I'm looking at him. And they were, it seemed like very tight in carting people, getting people at the door, getting people out. If there was a problem, they did call the police. I did note there was a handful of police calls. I suppose maybe my biggest takeaway that I was kind of wondering about, although I don't have a great perspective on all of the businesses in town, was kind of the matter of the large quantities being served, things like the fish bowls, and wondering whether that was a driver of people getting, at 1:30 in the morning when you can buy a jug of liquor, essentially, if that was driving some of the call volume. So that was something I was thinking about. So that's what I would say for my disclosure.
Councilor Staley.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, speaking of the police calls, we're just going to put that up.
Councilor Staley, did you want to disclose the same thing?
I am going to, yes. Okay. I just wanted to disclose why I was concerned. I was going to put something on the screen of the police, the chart. Jim, if you could put that up. There we go. Okay, so we did see that Wiley's has had a larger volume of calls compared with, and if you put it down a little bit, move that up on the screen a little bit, there you go, 165 compared with Billy Frog's was the next one at 37. year-to-date. So we did go in on Friday. I was there. I got to the bar about 8 o'clock. I stayed until I left outside of the bar at 1:30 and went and stood in the front of the bar with Counselor Neatsert and Counselor Starr on the west side of the building. When I was inside of the bar, I did notice that it was Fishbowl Friday. And so for $10, you can get one of these things with, I asked one of the employees, they said it has 5 shots of Jack Daniels or whatever your choice of alcohol would be. I did watch the bartenders pour, and they were very generous in what they put into one of these. And then you could fill it up with your choice of pop. And I saw people, lots of people, using this as their mixed drink. Young women, men, they give it to you with several straws, but people were using this as their personal beverage. So that was a little concerning to me. I said to the employee, what time is last call? When would be the last time you could order one of these jumbo beverages? They said 1:30. You close at 2. So that a person could feasibly be sucking down 5 shots of whiskey in a half an hour. As we were standing outside at 1:30, we observed over half a dozen people coming out of the bar who were not able to walk. One young woman had to be carried out of the bar. We had people falling down at our feet. I saw 2 men who almost fell into traffic. I wanted to go help them. I mean, it was really pathetic to say that. And I have to wonder if this had something to do with it. There was a constant police presence on that night, and I agree with Councilor Neatsert that there were lots of security on board, but we saw the police coming by all the time. And we saw several people being restrained. And when I left at 2 o'clock, I went over on the north side of the building where I was parked. There were 7 patrol cars parked on the side of the building. I went over and I was listening, and there was one individual with a police officer visiting with him. There didn't seem to be any violence erupting. And then when I left, there were still 6 squad cars parked there. I went back to the bar on Saturday just to see, how that would play out. I was there from 12 o'clock to 1:45. I went in with former Councilman Greg Jameson. As we sat at the bar, I became aware of a lot of people packed into that bar. And I have to say, it's a very popular place. People were having a good time. It was Halloween weekend. But I went up to the security people and I said, do you keep track of who's coming in? Do you ever turn people away? And he said, yes. I said, well, what is the security capacity, or what's the capacity of volume? And he didn't know. I asked 2 of them. So I had concerns that maybe there were too many people in the bar at that time. So that would be something to address. And he also told me that they didn't monitor the outside of the bar. And my concern is I just don't want people to go out and stumble into traffic or go down the street so drunk out of their minds that they're going to get beat up or raped or whatever. So I was just hoping that we could talk about maybe some things we could do to promote safety moving forward.
Councilor, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, was that
see, anybody else? Councilors? Yes, Councilor Erickson.
I know it's quasi-judicial, so I just need to disclose that I was invited to go. I did not attend, but I did receive updates and some text messages back and forth prior, so nothing different than what you've heard today, but I don't know if that is in the quasi-judicial time. I would like to ask Mr. Duncan maybe to address some of the concerns that Councilor Staley has. I'm not quite sure that's our role as a counselor. I understand the compassion and I understand the intent behind it, but I'm not sure that it's my role as a city councilor to be regulating every bar, every business in town, regulating drink specials, things of that nature when we're talking about renewing a license. So if you could address that for me. Again, I understand the intent and the compassion behind Councilor Staley, but I just want you to, as a representative, to be able to defend yourself truly.
Drew?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I'll just try and hit 3 high points, and the 3 high points that I think were probably addressed by Councilwoman Staley. Number 1, capacity on Saturday night. It's my understanding that the fire marshal was there for at least 2 hours, and the fire marshal was asked by security on at least one occasion if they were close to capacity, and his response was that they were not. And anecdotally, the security folks at Wiley's suggest that they weren't. They were not near capacity on Saturday night. So that we hope that answers the first question. With regards to a fishbowl or a pitcher special, it's a 64-ounce pitcher that you get on Friday nights. 7.5 ounces of it is alcohol. The way that Wiley's, like many other establishments, regulates the sale of their alcoholic beverages is every shot of liquor is 1.5 ounces. So it comes out in 1.5 ounces. In this particular circumstance, it would come out in 5 shots. That's meant to be shared. We certainly don't encourage our patrons to drink that on their own. That's why it's provided with a number of straws. And again, I certainly am not in the business of comparing our business to others, but this is a common marketing occurrence in many other locations. It doesn't make it right. I'm just suggesting if this is probably a fairly common occurrence throughout the city of Sioux Falls and throughout this market nationwide, quite honestly. As I understand it, Councilman Neitzer, there was, I think, 4 calls on Friday. One of them was from Thursday night at around 2 o'clock. That was regards to an assault, and I think that particular circumstance didn't start in Wiley's, but ended on the sidewalk in front of it. But as you know, at that time of night, that those events could be sketchy. But I think that was called in by our security folks, and as I understand it, maybe also possibly broken up by our security folks. I think that the pictures that were provided by Councilwoman Staley were with regards to, and again, this is what we believe. This is what our security folks are telling us. That was with regards to a young female patron who tried to get in with a fake ID. She argued with our security folks for a while about whether or not her ID was real. At some point, decision was made between security and our off-duty police officers to contact law enforcement. She ran from the entrance of the establishment, and that was the reason for, I think she fell and hurt herself running away from law enforcement, and that's the reason for the number of cars that were there. We also had a call for a patron who wouldn't disperse, and as I suggested earlier, that's something that our insurer would, and quite honestly, in common practice, our off-duty officers suggest is probably a good time to have law enforcement be present. One thing that I didn't also mention that I want to make sure I do, it appears as though the Sioux Falls Police Department has been active in forming a downtown bar task force, and I apologize if that's not the correct name for it. The principals in our organization have met with Sergeant Paul, Smederud, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that because I don't want to offend anyone. Around 2 weeks ago, we're committed to continuing to do that. We find law enforcement in this situation is assistive at us, and we want to be assistive with them. We have 44 cameras in our establishment that we routinely show footage to law enforcement to help with their investigations both inside of our establishment and outside of our establishment when things happen outside of our establishment that don't have anything to do with us. So we're happy to continue that relationship and to continue to build that relationship with that task force if I'm suggesting it's the right name.
Drew, thank you. Council, would anybody want to make a motion before we continue the dialogue?
I would, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilor Bach, and seconded by Councilor Erickson. Councilor Erpenbach.
I just would like to thank you, Mr. Duncan, for your representation of the management and owners and employees of Wiley's, and I would hope that in the future this council won't be singling out individual businesses who are otherwise operating legally. This is a difficult situation. I haven't been this embarrassed in a city council meeting in a long time. And I appreciate your professionalism, and I appreciate that all of you are here and managing your business in the best way that you can. I understand that this is not necessarily the lifestyle that you would choose at those councilors that attended the Saturday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. This isn't the lifestyle you would choose. It's not the business that you would choose to run. But they are doing it legally within the laws of the state of South Dakota. And this is embarrassing. And I would encourage us to approve this and move on, please.
Before I go to Councilor Staley or Councilor Neitzer, did any of the other councilors, Councilor Starr?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Duncan, for being here this evening. I want to do my disclosure as well. My concern began back in August when I did a ride-along with the Sioux Falls Police Department. A large part of our evening from 9 o'clock, the shift that went from 9 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning was spent policing bars downtown and activities in that part of the city. There were many activities, and the officers that I rode with did a very nice job of making sure that things were taken care of and things were done in an orderly process. But a big part of our evening was spent to go back to make sure that having a presence at Wiley's, because they knew at closing time there were going to be issues. What was nice was to be able to see those working between the Sioux Falls Police Department, the off-duty officers, the professional bouncers, and staff security that was part of that process. I did go along on Friday evening as well as part in disclosing that. I'm not embarrassed by it. I did partake in a fishbowl myself. Luckily, I shared it with a couple of people who joined our group. But one of my main concerns, and we've talked about this with the city attorney's office as well, and I would have a question maybe at this point after the disclosure for Attorney Fifley. Does marketing tactics or strategies, as Mr. Duncan called them, or in my words, promoting binge drinking, does that fall under the category of suitable person or suitable location when we're considering this license?
David?
Pardon me, Counselor, I'm not going to be brief, but I'll try. The Supreme Court, there's been two decisions regarding Rod Woodruff and the Buffalo Chip out in western South Dakota have given us a lot of guidance on what the suitable location issue and what factors. This is quoting the State Supreme Court. Suitability of location remains a factor regardless of how many times an applicant has received approval in the past at the same location. It appears to us, that means the South Dakota Supreme Court, that among the factors that may properly be considered in the exercise of a legal discretion would be the type of business which applicant proposes to operate, the manner in which the business is operated, the extent to which minors frequent or are employed in such place of business, the adequacy of the police facilities to properly police the proposed location, as well as other factors which are inherently associated in the sale of alcoholic beverages. In considering the above factors which may have a bearing upon whether the location is suitable, the legislature, that means the state legislature, undoubtedly had in mind the fact that local governing boards, being familiar with their own communities, and in many instances having personal knowledge of facts which would not be available to the licensing authority solely on the basis of the application submitted, are in a better position to determine whether the place where the applicant proposes to operate is a proper and suitable location. I hope that answers your question, Counselor.
Absolutely. Mayor, may I continue?
Yes, Councilor Starr.
Great. Mr. David, could you put the call Councilor Staley had up? One of the things that we talked about, and listening to the description, is the number of calls that are taken by the police department. I don't know if Mr. Duncan, if you've had a chance to review these numbers. I apologize as you're walking away. If you could scroll down just a little bit, Jim, because it's the 2016 numbers that I'm concerned about primarily. This was the information that we received from Chief Burns on the number of calls in similar type of establishments that have similar marketing strategies, I guess I would call it. For me, it stands out considerably that Wiley's has had 165 police calls in the last 9 months, January through September. The next closest was Billy Frogs, which was also on our list this evening. To me, that's a considerable difference. The chart also breaks down disorderly conduct, assault, fights, and intoxicated subjects. I know that part of your description and to us tonight is a lot of the police calls are outside of the realm of what's going on at the establishment. They happen to be the calls to that location. When you see numbers like this, would you say that that is an accurate statement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Starr, I'm sorry, maybe I lost the question. What is an accurate statement?
Well, that you were saying that primarily the reason for the calls to this address and this location at Wiley's is separate from activities that are going on from the bar. What would you, I mean,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't, if I did, let me apologize. I don't think I suggested that there were primarily calls for reasons other than us. I think what I suggested, and I'd like to make clear and make sure that I do, is that there are a number of reasons for the calls. Some of those calls, I think, have to do with, and I don't know what number they would be, but some of those calls have to do with things that don't affect us, maybe are things that we happen upon when we show up in the morning, are related to businesses or locations that are close to us in the downtown area. Or activity that doesn't come from our establishment. I certainly didn't mean to imply that those were the majority of the calls. If I said that, I apologize.
Mr. Mayor.
Any of the other councilors who've not had a chance to speak yet? Council Vice Chair Kiley.
Thank you. I would like to echo some of the comments of Councilor Erickson and Erpenbach regarding our role as a city council, and I too feel somewhat uncomfortable with the proceedings on this particular item because we've renewed numerous liquor licenses in the past and will in the future, and I don't know that we've gone out and actively monitored the individual business prior to this. Based on, and I don't know that we can base marketing tactics on suitable person either, because I'm sure there's other establishments that are using the same or very similar marketing tactics as well too. So I would just, and I think Councilor Neitzert had indicated that part of the reason was to raise awareness with the number of calls, and some of that I believe Mr. Duncan had mentioned was a variety of reasons, including volume. And when we're talking about volume, I can't help but think, too, if Wiley's went away, where are the patrons going to go? Are they going to go to other establishments, and we'll see other establishments with an increase in the number of calls and so forth? I don't know, I guess. So there's a lot of unknowns in this. So I would just... I would urge the council to move on with this, and I think that one of the main reasons for bringing this forward was to raise awareness, and I think we've done that, and I would just propose that we move forward.
Councilor Seeley.
And let me just say that I wasn't advocating that we don't renew their liquor license, but I am saying that I think there needs to be an awareness of overpouring, over-serving. And I think that's a legitimate thing to say. I'm not saying people shouldn't drink, but I'm just saying that I believe is a mandate that a bar is supposed to do. You're supposed to be responsible. And the question to me is, how much responsibility does a bar owner have when he sees someone's visibly intoxicated to continue serving them alcohol? So it's a discussion. We talked about it. I'm grateful, and I think it was we didn't do anything illegal by going in and observing that for ourselves.
Councilor Neitzert.
Yeah, I would just close by saying that with respect, I'm not going to apologize, and I'm not embarrassed for any of this. When you see call volume that's that disparate, I just want to do my due diligence, and so I just wanted to ask the question, and I thought, what better way to get a little perspective than to go there? It's a public place. And I told them before the meeting, my point is not to pull your license. I have no interest in pulling your license. In fact, I saw a lot of very good things when I went there. Their security was all over people. They were doing the right things. And the other thing that I told them is the last thing I want them to take from this is a lesson of not to be proactive and to call the police because they're afraid that they're going to get dinged because they have too many police calls. I was just simply asking the question, why the disparity? I mean, I could understand some disparity if you're the most popular place in town, but 4 or 5 times, and so I was trying to figure out what the answer is. And we are responsible for renewing licenses. I guess my sort of rhetorical question would be, at what point would we have any reason to look into this? Is it 50 times call volume, 100 times call volume? Can they do whatever they want with impunity? I mean, if so, then what are we doing here? So, thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Actually, Mr. Mayor.
A roll call vote, please.
Point of order.
Council.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Erickson.
Point of order is always in
Rules
order,
over.
sir.
Mayor, I think we better go ahead with this one.
With what?
I think we have some more comments.
I had a point of order. I was going to ask a question. Are we allowing public input as part of this license renewal? I think we have a responsibility if there's anyone from the community that wants to speak to this.
Councilor Starr, I've been doing this for almost 7 years. We've never had public input on this type of item before. That's why I'm recommending, as has been recommended by your peers, I think it's time to move on.
Actually, sir, I disagree because I asked for a point of order. I got a clarification. That's not out of line to do and ask for.
And very good, sir. Are you done now?
Yes.
Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
No.
Staley.
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Item 22.
Item 22 is transfer of a 2016 retail liquor license, including Sunday sales certificate and video lottery terminals, from IJK LLC, the Copper Lounge, 136 South Phillips Avenue, to Speak Easy LLC, 130 South Phillips Avenue. Item 23 is a renewal of a 2017 retail liquor license for Speak Easy LLC, 130 South Phillips Avenue. Item 24 is a new 2016-17 packaged malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license for MCA Market LLC, MCA Market 1038 North Minnesota Avenue. Item 25 is rescind 2016 retail wine license for JSM Investments Incorporated, Benji's Casino, 5422 East Arrowhead Parkway. Item 26, rescind 2016-17 retail malt beverage license for JSM Investments Incorporated, Benji's Casino, 5422 East Arrowhead Parkway. Item 27, rescind 2016-17 packaged malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license for Hare & Hare Incorporated, Hampton Inn, 2417 South Carolyn Avenue. Item 28, new 2016-17 packaged malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license for Harry Hare Incorporated, Hampton Inn, 2417 South Carolyn Avenue. Item 29 is a special one-day liquor license for Ramcota Companies Incorporated, Best Western Ramcota Hotel, to be operated at Avera Prairie Center, 1000 East 23rd Street, for a conference on October 27, 2016. Item 30, special one-day liquor license for Hy-Vee Incorporated, all occasions by Hy-Vee, to be operated at The Point Is to Serve Church, 506 North Kiwanis Avenue, for a wedding on November 5th, 2016. We will make the change on item 28 for a spelling error. So, right.
Welcome.
Good
it's
evening.
the longest you've ever waited to do your role. It's now 10 minutes to 9.
Pretty close to my bedtime.
Yes.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Item 22 is a transfer request due to a change in ownership, and item 23 is the 2017 license renewal for that same license. Item 24 is a request for a new market to sell packaged malt beverages and South Dakota Farm wines. Items 25 and 26 are requests to rescind the malt and wine licenses, which were approved by the council on September 6th. The applicant does not wish to continue with that business. Item 27 is a request to rescind the license that was approved again on September 6th. The license was submitted with the incorrect corporate name. And item 28 is a new license request with the corrected corporate name. Items 29 and 30 are special one-day requests, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Buck?
Item 29, Jamie, the date on that, is that correct? Remind me again how it is that we get away with approving things that happened already?
That can't be correct.
I hope that's true.
And I don't have the license with me tonight to be able to check that, so I'm certain that's probably an error. Because I would have had to have had notice on that long before that, so yeah, that one should not be approved.
Jamie
you're
and
right,
David,
so
any
I
recommendations?
apologize.
Councilor Buck, thanks for catching that. I appreciate it.
I would make a motion to approve 22 through 28 and 30.
Second, Erickson.
There's been a motion to approve all the items except for item 29. It has been seconded. Before I go, Jamie, you don't know what date that needs to be approved.
I do not.
You
Not
got any
off the top
thoughts
of my
before we
head.
go on?
I do not, unless you wanted to defer it till the next meeting. It could possibly be 2017 and a clerical error on my part. But again, I don't know that without looking at the license application.
Jim, do you have any comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Vice Chair, hang on there, please.
Just a quick idea. I don't know how easy it is to find the information. If you turn it down, you vote against this one tonight, Jamie could find the information. You could do a motion to reconsider at the very end of the meeting, and that way if the event was coming up anytime soon, you don't affect that. I mean, that's just an option you have at your disposal. I just don't know how.
That's what she's saying. I agree.
Yeah, I could certainly run to my office real quick and pull the application
That's why
if you want to do
that's why I
that.
asked. Good job, Jim. Good job, Jamie. Did you have another comment, Council Vice
That
Chair?
was exactly what my comment was going to be, Mr. Mayor.
We got there. Good job. Thank you. There's been a motion to approve all the items except for item 29. It has been seconded. Now, there was also a recommendation made. I don't know if the council would like to follow through with that.
If we might, Mr. Mayor, if we could
Councilor
just
Buck?
vote on the motion first, and then
Okay,
another
very
motion
good.
might. Another motion might happen after that for 29.
Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson, Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Councilor Umbach.
Motion to defer item 29.
Second, Salberg.
You have to be in the affirmative, and then you vote it down. By Roberts, Counselor, it'd have to be in the affirmative, and then you'd have to vote it down.
Move to
Item 29.
approve item 29.
Move it to the end of the meeting.
There's been a motion to approve item number 29, seconded by Councilor Selberg.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor.
Can, the way I understand it, Jamie, you're going to go check on this right now?
Can we just wait?
Can
and
we
vote it?
just,
Defer the vote till later on.
is it, would defer the vote until later? Or is it?
Yeah, we'll just defer,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Till
the
later
item.
tonight? Okay.
Move the item.
Oh, that would be better. Move the item to the last agenda item.
Well, why don't we, sincerely, we'll just wait. We'll wait on the vote. And
I'd recommend a substitute motion to defer it till the end of the meeting.
Councilor has.
So moved.
Second.
It's been a substitute motion to defer to the end of the meeting, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Do I have to vote on that? Yes.
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson, Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. It's now 5 minutes to 9. Item 31.
Item 31 is a second reading ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property south of East 57th Street and west of South Sycamore Avenue from the RD2 Townhome Residential, Suburban, CN Conservation, and LW Live Work Districts to the RD2 Townhome Residential, Suburban, CN Conservation, and LW Live Work Districts, petition number 5329, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
Good evening again. The applicant for this and owner is Mike Barber. The property is located at the to the southwest of South Sycamore Avenue and East 61st Street. Total size of the 3 parcels is 36.5 acres. The amount of multifamily is staying relatively the same. Roughly half of the 15 acres of live work is being shifted from South Sycamore to the west, adjacent to South Greystone Avenue. The applicant is also increasing the conservation area to the north, as you can see in the comparison here. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody who wanted to speak to this item in the audience? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Blacksman, motion to approve this item sent by Council Chair Rolfing. Is there any discussion, folks? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Councilors, I'm sorry I called you folks and didn't mean to make. Thank you, councilors. Sorry, Council Chair Rolfing. I won't do that again. I hope. Item 32.
Item 32 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1200 East 3rd Street from the S1 General Institutional District to the C3 Commercial Community District. Petition number 5397, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends denial 4-3.
Diane.
At the applicant's request, this item is requested for a deferral until December 6th.
Thank you.
For the second reading.
Councilors, does anybody want to make that motion to defer?
I would like to make the motion to defer item 32 to Tuesday, December 6th.
Second, Starr.
Councilor Staley, thank you. Councilor Starr, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Council, thank you. Item 33.
Item 33 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 7820 South Brandy Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District. Petition number 5555, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant for this is Kelly Nielsen. The owner is Rod Ballou. The location is south of West 85th Street and east of South Brandy Avenue in the Pinewood Addition. The size of the parcel is 1.15 acres, and the purpose is to develop it for a single lot family residence. I can answer any questions you have.
And thank you very much. Another second reading, folks. Anybody want to speak to this item? Very good. Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second.
Councilor Chair Rolfing has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 34.
Item 34 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city regarding UT1 forms?
UT1.
Thank you. Microcell towers.
Diane?
The applicant for this is the Planning Office for the City of Sioux Falls. The request is to amend the UT form to allow for provisions of microcell towers with the increasing use of cellular devices. The need for tower technology is also increased. The smaller towers or microcell towers are approximately 30 feet in height and would be allowed in a single-family area that's either a AD or DD form and within 5 foot of a side yard lot line and 25 foot from an adjacent structure.
Thank you. Anybody want to speak to this item? Welcome, Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor. Tamara, good to see you. These are just modern-day poles, modern-day telephone poles that improve data coverage in a very concentrated area, about 750 feet in areas where there would be lots of people or difficulty reaching it geographically from where the macro tower is. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to help.
Thank you, Councilor. Thanks for being here tonight for us. Appreciate it.
Move to approve.
Yes, thank you, Councilor.
Second, Erpenbach.
Thank you, Councilor Erpenbach.
Mr. Mayor.
Council Chair.
Mr. Brown, am I hearing you right that if we don't pass this, it'll stop the growth of this thing telling me what I have to do all the time?
No.
That's not it?
Anything about that.
Oh, okay, okay. I was trying.
I know. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 35.
Item 35 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property, 1800 South Southeastern Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This item and the next item are in relation to this major transportation project that's planned for 2018, 19, and 20. On this sketch, you'll see the properties that are denoted in yellow. Those, after selecting the preferred alternative, are the properties that have been identified for acquisition. The first item that we're for 35, this is provided we're successful in the purchase of the property, the dental office at the southeast corner of 26th Street and Southeastern. This would provide notice that we will sit down and negotiate a lease so this business can continue to operate while they build their new facility as the relocation assistance through the federal government process allows, and we'd ask for your support.
Thanks, Mark. Did anybody want to speak to this item in the audience? Councilors?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Erickson has been a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 36, please.
Item 36 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Dan and Donna Goad.
This item is related to the same property. This is a 120-day lease that is a condition of closing, so we would, provided you have support, we'll aim to close on this property on December 1st, and then that date would start a 120-day lease, so the business, again, can continue to operate. In the meantime, our real estate folks will sit down and negotiate a longer-term lease that will cover the term of their construction. Again, this is a 120-day lease. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second.
Councilor Erickson has been a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Staley. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thanks, Council. Item 37.
Item 37 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property, elevated water storage tank space.
This item, Mayor and Council, just provides notice that we will sit down and renegotiate updated leases for two of the communication companies that are on these four towers, and we have two pictures just to show you what those devices look like that are on top of those towers.
Mark, thank you. Did anybody want to speak to these items? Very good. Councilors?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second.
Councilor Erickson has been a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Staley. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 38, please.
Item 38 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the Zoological Society of Sioux Falls for the management of the Great Plains Zoo and Delbridge Museum.
Hi, David.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Dave Fisher, Parks and Recreation. We currently have a management agreement with the Zoological Society that expires at the end of 2016. What we're proposing is an additional 5-year agreement. The provisions of the existing agreement have worked well over the last 5 years, and really the agreement that we're proposing now is very similar. There is one provision that had changed, which is the distribution of subsidy payments to the zoo to help offset operational costs. The existing agreement allows for 12 monthly equal payments. And what the zoo has requested is to divide those payments into 8 equal monthly payments to coincide a little more with what their revenue flows are. The other change involves a number of city-appointed board members that would be on their board. The current agreement speaks to the number of city-appointed board members as a ratio of 1 to 7. for their other board members. At times, depending on how many people they had on their board, that was confusing. So what we decided to do is just move to have 2 members. Right now there's 1, to have 2 members, city-appointed members, in addition to a member of our department, which right now is a director, Don Kearney, to also serve on the board as an ex officio non-voting member. Section 15 of the proposed agreement really does the job of laying out the details of the responsibilities that the city has in addition to the responsibilities that the society has. The Park Board and Zoological Society have both recommended approval of the agreement, as does staff. And here tonight also is Elizabeth Whaley, President of the Society, to help answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Elizabeth, thanks for staying here as long as you have as well. I know you've got some other fans in the audience too. Is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Thank you. Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Kylie.
Council Chair has made a motion to approve the resolution of this agreement, approving this agreement. Seconded by Council Vice Chair Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item number 39.
Item 39 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the Wegner Arboretum Society for the management of the Mary Jo Wegner Arboretum and East Sioux Falls Historic Site, including the Mabel and Judy Jasper Educational Center, the Jasper Family Gardens, and all other amenities consistent with the master plan.
We're currently just coming to the end of our first 3-year agreement with the Arboretum Society to run the Arboretum for us. What we're proposing is an additional 3-year agreement. The proposed agreement, again, like the zoo agreement, has worked well for us, and so what we're proposing is very similar to it. Maybe the one thing that is different and a new provision is the development of a business plan. The business plan is intended to be an opportunity to kind of step back and reevaluate priorities and fundraising strategies associated with future capital improvements and operational goals, objectives, and strategies for the expansion of hours of operation, the operational budget growth, increasing staffing levels, and future projections of revenue and expense. Similar to the zoo agreement, Exhibit A outlines the operational responsibilities of both parties in detail. However, in general, the city provides all utilities and maintenance of the buildings and grounds, structures as well, and the society provides all visitor services and programming. Again, the Park Board and Arboretum Society have both recommended approval of this agreement, as does staff. And we also have in the audience Pam Janza, the president of the society, Catherine Schnabel, the chair of the governance committee, Lori Kiso, the manager of the Arboretum, and also Sue Aguilar from the board are all here to help answer any questions, and I appreciate their presence.
As do I. President Pam, thanks for staying so long. Catherine, thanks for being my boss a long, long time ago. And Lori and Councilor Aguilar, thank you for being here as well. Did any of you want to speak? Very good. And Catherine, you cannot speak. Councilors, anybody?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Thank you.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you very much, Councilor Bach. Thank you, Councilor Chair Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Thank you, councilors. I appreciate that. That's 8-0. It passed. Item 40.
Item 40 is a resolution authorizing an application for financial assistance, authorizing the execution and submittal of the applications, and designating an authorized representative to certify and sign payment requests.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. This is the next major wastewater project that will move through our system. It is at the wastewater plant in northeast part of the city. The area that's highlighted in green, that is the primary digestion area. That's where the fat soils and grease and the heavy solids get ultimately digested by microbiology. They off-gas. We harness that gas. It's a very corrosive environment they've been online for 30 years. It's time to rehabilitate them and ultimately add capacity. We've got some purpose and need information for you on the digesters, and I'd be happy to share more with you if you had questions. The plan for this project, it's an $11 million investment. We did get the reduced interest rate, so we can invest the offset of that 1% up into the watershed. Again, this item is just for us to make application for payment. You will have bond ordinances that will come back before you in the coming months. And the offset, the nearly $60,000 that we get from the reduced interest, will be allowed to invest up north into the watershed to improve our water bodies. And we would ask you for your support.
Thanks, Mark. Is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to this? Councilors?
One quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please, Councilor Buck.
That $560,000 that we're going to reinvest into the watershed, how long a space along the riverbank will we do for that kind of cash?
So there's a number of different strategies. They could be stream bank restoration. It could be helping an ag producer with a manure management plan. There's a number of strategies. We could be purchasing a 15-year lease. So that native grass just grows and then it becomes a filter strip. So there's a number of different strategies that the team has in a priority basis, and so it will go into those that funding.
I thought there was just one thing, so great, thank you. I would move approval.
Thanks, Councilor Buck.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson. If there is no discussion, Councilors, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Has passed 8-0. Item 41.
Item 41 is a report of the October 28, 2016 Notice of Transfer of Appropriations within Major Organizational Units.
Very good. Jamie, I see you made it. And Jim, you made it. Good job. Jamie, would you mind coming forward, please? And I apologize. I even forgot what we did. We deferred it
To the
and
end of the
Last
meeting.
item.
now we can just, Jamie?
I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. A
All
little
right.
bit of running involved there. I apologize. I went and pulled the application, and it does say 10/27/16. Never should have been on this agenda. My apologies. I missed it. Made a mistake. I'm sorry.
So what does that mean?
That means that you need to deny this, obviously, because the date has already passed. Now, I do have a call into the gal that submitted the application and to discuss this with her, because this should have never happened. And I honestly don't know if they carried on the event without the license, because they didn't have it.
Very interesting. Councilor Buck.
Jamie, two things. One, you just admitted a huge mistake in a public meeting. Two, you ran all the way to City Hall and back. Nice job. I appreciate the extra effort on behalf of the citizens. So I would I would move approval for item 29 and encourage you to vote no.
Very good.
Second, Erickson.
There's been a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Erickson. You heard what Jamie said, her recommendation. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
No.
Erpenbach?
No.
Kylie?
No.
Nitzert?
No.
Rolfing?
No.
Selberg?
No.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
No.
That has failed 0-8. Councilors, is there any other items you'd like to discuss? How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Council Chair, thank you.
Second.
By Councilor Erpenbach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Sioux Falls, make it a great, great night.